It's all covered in today's China Truths.
Italy trembles as raids and deportations escalate. Entire neighborhoods are raided, thousands of Chinese nationals are in custody, deportations climb by the day, and the shadow economy is collapsing under police sweeps. This is China Truths. Today we bring you the latest news from Italy, from the alleys of Milan to the factories of Tuscany. Fear now grips Chinese communities facing an unprecedented wave of enforcement. Now, how did it come to this? The story stretches back decades. Italy has long hosted one of Europe's largest Chinese-speaking migrant communities, deeply woven into industries from textiles to food to small-scale manufacturing. Milan's Chinatown bustled with shops and restaurants, while Prato and Tuscany became hubs for low-cost workshops. Migrants sought opportunity, built businesses, and supplied affordable labor. But alongside this growth came informal networks, cash-only factories, undocumented workers, and parallel financial systems that kept millions flowing out of sight. Then came Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative, and Italy became the first G7 country to sign on. Investment poured into ports, factories, and infrastructure projects. Politicians cheered, but critics warned of hidden costs, dependency, corruption, and blurred lines between legal trade and illicit operations. Prato, once a proud textile center, filled with migrant-run shops operating on long hours, low wages, and limited oversight. Over the years, authorities uncovered tax irregularities, counterfeit goods, and unregulated financial transfers tied to underground systems. Reports linked some operations to transnational networks, fueling concerns of labor exploitation. Yet for years, these problems lingered in the shadows, tolerated as part of Italy's economic survival. But resentment grew. As Italy's economy stagnated, locals blamed some migrant-run businesses for squeezing out competition and avoiding labor rules. Populist politicians amplified the anger, turning migrant communities into symbols of globalization's failures. The COVID-19 pandemic supercharged the backlash. Crowded workshops became hotbeds of infection, sparking protests and hardening attitudes. Police investigations exposed unsafe living conditions and hidden dormitories, shifting public opinion toward drastic action. By 2024, patience snapped. Backed by political leaders eager to prove their strength, Italian authorities launched sweeping operations across the nation. What began as targeted checks in textile hubs expanded into a nationwide campaign. From Rome to Naples, convoys of armored police entered migrant neighborhoods at dawn. Streets were sealed, businesses closed, and hundreds detained in hours. Thousands now face deportation as communities brace for impact. Today, Italy stands at a crossroads. The crackdown is not only dismantling underground economies, it is reshaping how the nation views migration, trade, and its relationship with Beijing. The fallout will echo far beyond Prato's workshops or Milan's streets. It is a turning point in Europe's confrontation with China's global rise. In Prato, once the pride of Italy's textile tradition, police entered dozens of workshops accused of relying on undocumented labor and unsafe conditions. Cameras captured officers cutting locks, escorting workers onto buses, and loading counterfeit goods onto trucks. Locals described tense scenes as smoke from burning debris filled the sky, while some owners slipped through alleys to avoid detention. Milan's Chinatown saw similar sweeps, where investigators claimed to have dismantled tax-dodging networks and hidden cash transfers. Rome, too, became a flashpoint. Immigration squads backed by financial crime units entered restaurants and warehouses accused of funneling billions abroad through informal systems. Over 200 arrests in a single week highlight the scale of the campaign. Many now face deportation hearings. And this is not just about economics. Authorities stress the fight against organized crime. In Naples, several alleged gang leaders with international ties were detained in operations said to involve mafia families. In Palermo, unlicensed gambling halls connected to underground groups were shut down, with stacks of cash seized and dozens taken into custody. Officials insist these are the largest actions against transnational criminal networks Italy has ever seen. But for everyday migrants, the line between offenders and civilians has blurred. Families without paperwork, overstayed students, and small shopkeepers are caught up alongside those accused of serious crimes. Advocacy groups sound the alarm over heavy-handed enforcement, children separated from parents, long-term residents deported without hearings. Concern spreads quickly. In Florence, restaurants sit shuttered, while some families left cities out of fear. Italian social media is filled with videos, workers escorted from factory floors, families in tears as relatives are taken away, children distressed during sudden removals. Small protests have sprung up in Milan and Bologna, where banners declare, "We are workers, not criminals." Yet these voices remain drowned out by the tense atmosphere. Meanwhile, deportations are accelerating at a staggering pace. Charter flights packed with migrants depart weekly for Guangzhou and Shanghai. Many return to uncertain futures, facing debts, family pressures, or simply nothing to go back to. Families left behind describe the departures as waves of loss, each flight tearing communities apart. Italian leaders hail the campaign as a victory for law and order. Politicians boast that Italy will no longer tolerate shadow economies, pointing to record arrests and asset seizures. The Prime Minister frames the operations as essential to restoring fairness and protecting jobs. State TV broadcasts piles of fake goods and seize euros, reinforcing the message that action is overdue. But the international reaction complicates the picture. Beijing has lodged formal protests, accusing Italy of unfairly targeting migrant workers and fueling discrimination. Chinese media calls the raids politically motivated, warning of damage to trade ties. Meanwhile, Europe's partners, while publicly supportive, quietly worry that such a sweeping campaign risks inflaming social tensions at home and straining relations with Beijing. Italy is now at a crossroads. What began as targeted inspections has expanded into a nationwide campaign reaching deep into migrant communities. For many Italians, it is seen as long-awaited action. For many migrants, however, it has become a difficult and uncertain chapter unfolding day by day. The atmosphere is unmistakable. Shuttered businesses, empty streets, a sense of unease in every interaction. The crackdown is no longer just about undocumented labor or counterfeit goods. It is reshaping Italy's identity as it wrestles with globalization, sovereignty, and the human cost of enforcement. This wave of operations did not happen overnight. It is the result of three converging pressures: economic stagnation, entrenched crime, and political necessity that together drove Rome to launch the most aggressive campaign in decades. The second driver is crime. Italian investigators argue that what began as small-scale tax dodges and counterfeit clothing has morphed into sprawling underground networks. These groups are tied to financial misconduct, illicit trade, and unregulated gambling. Billions of euros allegedly flowed through informal transfer systems back to China, alarming regulators. Reports of global smuggling routes from Asia through Africa and Europe showed the scope of these operations. For Italian police already battling long-entrenched mafia groups, new transnational networks became another battleground. Officials framed the crackdown as anti-crime, not anti-immigrant. Yet in practice, raids affect both. The rhetoric provides cover, but the blurred line between organized groups and ordinary workers means whole communities pay the price. The third force driving Italy's campaign is politics. Ever since Rome signed on to China's Belt and Road Initiative, the deal has fueled fierce debate. Supporters praised new investments, but critics warned of lost sovereignty and markets swamped with cheap imports. As tensions between Washington, Brussels, and Beijing intensified, Italy came under pressure to show where it stood. By targeting underground economies, leaders could reassure Western allies while appealing to voters anxious about jobs, crime, and national identity. Populist parties seized the moment, framing mass operations as proof that Italy was regaining control. The impact on daily life is clear. Businesses are shuttered, jobs vanish, and concern spreads through migrant neighborhoods. Families are separated, children left in tears, and communities paralyzed by uncertainty. Advocacy groups warn that enforcement sometimes hits long-term residents and even children born in Italy, deepening resentment and mistrust. Officials hail the crackdown as a triumph for law and order. They point to arrests, seizures, and closed workshops as proof of fairness restored. But critics see a deeper cost: rising stigma, struggling local economies, and entire communities retreating into silence. Some Italian businesses that once depended on migrant labor now suffer shortages, while restaurants and shops in immigrant districts stand empty. Ironically, the campaign may push undocumented workers further underground, exposing them to harsher conditions and exploitation. Employers know these workers have no protections, fueling an even more dangerous shadow economy. Meanwhile, everyday Chinese Italians face suspicion, discrimination, and even bullying in schools, blurring the line between legal residents and those accused of wrongdoing. Beyond the visible damage lies a quieter toll. Mental health. Families live in fear of sudden arrests. Children face trauma and isolation, and once vibrant communities now shrink into survival mode. The progress of integration built over decades risks unraveling. Italy's campaign raises a bigger question: how far can a democracy go in enforcing control before it undermines its own values? Officials say this is about crime and illegal labor, but the scale suggests something larger, signaling distance from Beijing while answering domestic anger. Critics warn this approach risks fueling division at home and diplomatic friction abroad. The lesson is stark. Italy may succeed in dismantling some networks, but without addressing deeper causes, the fallout, broken families, weakened trust, and strained diplomacy could last far longer than the operations themselves. What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.
Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will keep reporting on the COVID surge in China, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. And thank you for tuning in.